problem with using an API to bring back financial data is how do you select the company in the first place? So I thought this new link data type stocks might be a good tool in order to be able to do that. Now we are using the XBRL US API here. We're calling it through a query, which is part of this whole new get and transform data thing that was previously Power Query. And so we've built a function that enables us to do that. And this query here calls that function. And this is all written in the Power M language. So we have three inputs. We have a ticker, we have a data item and the years, and it will go away and bring back that data. So as you can see, last time I ran it for Ford, but I've changed the company over here. I've got General Motors, so I need to change the ticker. Now, fortunately, I know the ticker for General Motors, as I imagine most people do. It is GM. Some of these tickers you just know, don't you? So we can rerun this, which we can do by refreshing. Alt F5 will do the trick, and you can see it's quickly brought back that data. Now, in reality, this query is making two calls to the API. You can't directly call the API to bring back this data with the ticker, or well, you might be able to, but if you can, it's extremely slow, so it's impractical to do it. So you basically, first of all, need to get back the internal ID, and then you can then use that in your second API call to bring back the data. As you can see, it's all very fast. There's hardly a lag in doing that. Yeah, maybe give you a little bit of a visual on that. If we go to queries and connections, as I said, it's running off a function, and this is the function that does it. So let's oh, I hate the way it jumps around like that. If we go into the editor and we go into advanced editor, I'm afraid I'm going to expose you to all this Power M language. Hopefully that's not freaking you out too much, but you can see we've got a line here, and that basically does the ticker lookup. It basically runs another function that does that, and then the actual query which brings back the values we just saw is this one here. This is the API request, and it uses these query fields here, so you can see it's using the entity ID. That's what this bit of the code does here. So yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea for you to just be able to see under the hood what is really going on, and we've written these functions which kind of cover all that up, and so you're not exposed to that. And so what we have here is a lovely simple query you can run where you can just select a ticker, a data item and a year, and it will bring back values. And this is just an example of how you can use the API. So you can use this directly via the template that we supply, or you can basically use the functions we built here and to put them in your own queries, expand them, rewrite them, do whatever you want to do with them. It is all open for you to have fun. So going back to my original problem, as I said, you know, I know some tickers, so that's fine, but sometimes I don't, especially if I'm looking at a new company. I don't know what that ticker is going to be. So I wondered, as I said, whether this new link data type stocks could help us. So if I put in, for example, Microsoft here, and obviously I know the name of Microsoft, and if I click on that name and I go up here and go to stocks and basically click on that, it converts it immediately into a linked data type Microsoft, which is great, because if I then use this little selector here, which is at the corner of the cell, and click on that, it will give me the chance to choose things like price, for example. But in this instance, what I'm interested in is just bringing back the ticker symbol. And as you can see, it has brought back the ticker MSFT, which is, I know, what we want. So let's take this excellent functionality and stick it in our table up here, which we're using as our input in order to bring back company data. So yeah, we can do something similar. Oh, let's do it for General Motors. In fact, let's basically go here and then click on stocks, and it will turn it into a linked data type stocks. And then if we go equals, and we go like that, and we then select the ticker again. As you can see, it's helping me all the way with all the things I need to know. It will basically give us a ticker. Now it's working slightly differently in here because we're now in a table, and tables have a sort of a natural intelligence of their own. So just by selecting this cell over here, it's gone, right, okay, yeah, so this is the company's data type, and so I'll give you a list and you can choose the actual field that you want. So we are now set up. So for example, if instead of General Motors, I want to be able, it's interesting that it's showing me the, yeah, all sorts of weird things. It's showing me the ticker, but I think it's essentially saying its name is General Motors. These linked data types are in a permanent state of flux because they're using artificial intelligence, and they are also linked to the cloud, so that they are constantly, Microsoft that is, are constantly refining and changing it, or it's doing it by itself because it's artificially intelligent. So just every time I use it, things are slightly different. So yeah, just a word of warning, it's very dynamic. And hopefully it is dynamic in a good way, in that it's getting better and better and better, but we shall see. Yeah, we brought back General Motors data. So let's say we want to go back to Ford. So, or should we go back to Ford? We will go back to Ford, but that's kind of an interesting case. So I'm going to go to Tesla first. So let's put in Tesla, interesting. It's not sure which particular stock we want. That's because it is listed on various exchanges. I don't know quite why it's doing that, because it applies to Microsoft and General Motors as well, and it had no trouble there. So anyway, it says I have to choose. The one at the top is the one I want, so why I didn't choose it automatically, I don't know. But as you can see, it's given us the name Tesla, and automatically populated the ticker. So when we go over here, all we have to do is again do one of our refreshes, Alt F5, and I'm hoping it'll bring back some data. We shall find out in a minute. And there we go. We've got the revenue figures for Tesla. Incidentally, if you're interested in finding out more about the XBRL US API, or indeed any of the functions we built to enable you to access that all a bit more easily, then there's plenty of videos knocking around which sort of go into that in more detail. What I want to focus on here, though, really is this new stocks data type, and just what it can do for us in terms of providing inputs for our API calls. So, yeah, shall we insert a few more lines here so we can expand our table? Let's just add a couple of lines. There we go. And let's say we want to bring back General Motors. We want to look at General Motors as well. So let's put in GM. That's the easiest way to sort of deal with this, isn't it? Unfortunately, I kind of hope that what it might do is just automatically say, this is a company or stocks data type, like the cell above it. It's expanded the table, as you can see, automatically, but it hasn't automatically said it's a stock. I'm going to turn it into a linked stocks data type. So we have to do that ourselves, but we can do that just by clicking on stocks. And because it's automatically expanded the table, as you can see, it's automatically put the ticker in for us, which is great. Maybe we want to see another company. I talked about Ford before, so let's put in Ford and see what we get. As you can see, it's again, well, this time it's automatically selected it as a company data type, which is kind of what I thought it would have done before. I don't know why it didn't, but it has done now. That's great. It may be just some quirk of how I set the table up initially, but it's doing it now, so that's great. And you can see it's automatically put the ticker in. One of the reasons why I chose Ford was because when I put in Ford on its own once, and we will do it here. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's put it in here and see what happens. that's good. It's done what I expected it to do. But if we, I don't know, let's just put forward over here again and try it. Just trying to change its context. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't know what we want. Do we mean Ford Motor Company or do we mean Forward Industries, which I happen to know has the ticker Ford, and so it's in a quandary as to what to do, and it gives us a selection. But over here, both in the table and here, it's using context. It's looking at the cells all around it. I thought actually just use cells in the same table, but it's yeah, it's got an even wider remit in terms of trying to garner any context it can. And it said, well, this column clearly is full of motor cars, so he obviously means Ford Motors rather than Forward Industries. So just another example of the underlying intelligence and how it plays out in Excel. So yeah, we've got that. We've got those free stocks. We really ought to go back to the API just to show you that that's all still working. So again, if I Alt F5 to refresh this query, we will hopefully see some more data coming through. And there you go. We've got revenues now for General Motors and Ford. As you can see, these inputs aren't just restricted to one company or indeed one data item or 1 year. You can expand these tables, these input tables, and you'll get even more data. So yeah, it's very flexible in that respect. But again, coming back to this linked data type, what we might do is change the data item. So yeah, instead of revenues, maybe it would be interesting to look at earnings per share. Now, the items have to be specified as a series of tags, which is what makes XBRL tick, basically. And yeah, the tag for revenues is revenues, which is great. But the tag for earnings per share is a little bit more esoteric, shall we say? And so we really need to look that up. There is potentially an issue when trying to look up tags in that in reality there are 16,000 or more of them. So that's great in terms of finding a tag that exactly describes the data item you want to look at, but just finding those tags that you might want more often might be a bit more of a challenge. So just to help you, what we have is we have a tab along here which has got what we call the X financials in, and the idea is that these are a summary of the most likely financial items you're going to want, along with the kind of items that you might want to adjust them for in order to normalize your values. So if I put in that handy moniker EPS and look for that, we have basically chosen to call the item EPS, and next to it is its corresponding tag, and so we can quickly get hold of the tag that we need by searching for that, as you can see. And so yeah, it's just a question of Control C, copy that, and go back to the tab we were in, which was our linked tab. And yeah, and we can obviously just paste that in, and off we go. And indeed, let's go off and do that right now, and Alt F5 will refresh this data, and hopefully we'll get free EPS figures. And there we go. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring back an EPS figure was because obviously these linked data types aren't just about bringing back rather mundane tickers. There's a lot more interesting information there that we can utilize as well. So now we have an EPS, we might want to combine that with a price. So what I can do, oh, actually, let's get rid of this first off. Just go away. I didn't need that tab on me. Thank you very much. It's still trying to select a stock. So we've got rid of that. And if we choose maybe this cell over here, and if we click on equals and basically reference this company stock data type over here, and as you can see, it's immediately started to fill out our formula and giving us an option to choose one of the many data items that we can choose from this data type. So data items, fields is probably the correct description for them. And yeah, you can see quite a few interesting values. Anything which is listed here means that there is data available for this particular stock. So it's very much sort of stock dependent. So for example, if yeah, some things which ain't always there, for example, employees, because it's listed here, we know that actually there is a valid employees figure for Tesla. So, but we don't want employees, as I said, we want price. So I just click on price and then press return. And yeah, what went wrong there? Let's just try that again. Equals over here, and should be if I click price. Well, I've double clicked it, and it seems to have done the trick. Whether you need to double click on it, I don't know. I'm kind of yeah, just playing and seeing what happens. And anyway, we've got to what we want, which is great. And usual tricks available. For example, if I then fill this for all 3 fields here, it automatically picks up the values for the other 2 companies. Equally, we don't necessarily have to be dealing with this table nomenclature. We can, if we want to, I think this will work. If I say, right, okay, that's not the formula I want. I happen to know what cell this is. I happen to know the value I want is in cell A7, so I can replace that with A7. So I'm basically editing the formula as is, and equally that works just as well. As you can see, it's got A7 price because it basically looks at the underlying data type and says, it's a stock, so yep, we can work with price in that particular case. So yeah, we have prices, which is great. So obviously that means we can now calculate an EPS. Obviously, one for Tesla is going to be meaningless because they have yet to make a profit. But in the case of General Motors, let's do that trick. So obviously, let's see how it's going to respond, because again, I might not have done this before. Let's see what it does, and that's great. I'm happy with the value I've got, but I'm not happy with the data type that it sets. So I'm just going to, for completeness, format my cell, and please give me a general. General will be absolutely fine. Oh no, I don't want all those decimal places, do I? That's just overkill. 2 will be fine. Great. As you can see, we have created our very own PE working off the latest price, which we have got from the Microsoft linked data type. So that's all fine and dandy. There are some, yeah, there's some other things to say really about these linked data types. They don't always work perfectly. Let me give you an example. For example, if I try to get some prices, well, any information for John Deere, for example, and I select that and say it's a stock. We shall wait for it to come back. And as you can see, it goes to the data section. It says, I don't know any John Deeres, which of course is absolutely balderdash. Obviously, Deere is listed. It's not called John Deere. It's called Deere. Deere and Co, I think, and I don't know the ticker off the top of my head, so I can't try the ticker as another strategy. But yeah, so this was just really to show you that it's not working absolutely perfectly at the moment. Let's get rid of that. But in another video, I want to look at that and look at actually what other options are there in order to be able to bring back the tickers you want, to be able to sort of say, right, I don't know what this company's ticker is. How can I get that information without leaving Excel? And there are a number of strategies you can deploy, and I'd like to show you what they are, but I don't want to do it in this video because we're kind of running out of time, so we'll do that in another video. But what you can see is that this linked data type stocks is very powerful, and gives you access to not just tickers but other even more useful bits of information, which when combined with the sort of full level of detail that you can get from the XBRL US API, means that you can start to do some very powerful analysis on the historic performance of companies.